And even to that end,
Yeah,
like that hustle, like I'm gonna be real, my high school wasn't like that. I'm more like I'm part of the I printed the lyrics off and I read them and then I memorized
right.
them and then later on in life I started any kind of taking it seriously. So I just hear that kind of a hustle. Like, what's it like performing at these places at like 13? Like, is it cool for you? Like, does it like boost your reputation points? Like, what's it like?
Oh man, for me back then, I always liked the bigger stage than the more interpersonal ones, where you were like, where there was like 30 people right in your face. I would have rather the bigger stage and, where I can kind of move around a little bit. But it was definitely a booster every time I would do it. I was almost like I needed more. I had to have more
Mm.
to strengthen whatever I did because I liked it. I always liked being on stage, even as a younger kid. I always just liked doing whatever it could to get on stage, whether it was theater, whether it was music, whatever, chorus. You know what I'm saying? Always some kind of entertaining kind of a vibe.
That's awesome. So basically, your high school years are kind of that, pushing these different elements. Are you like recording music during this phase also, or are you just kind of performing it?
Um, yeah, the year before I got out of high school, or the 2 years probably, I started. My DJ would take me to different producers' houses, and we would record some stuff. And really, back then, which was weird, it was more popular to make demos because we would make these demos and go up in the record labels. We would literally like walk into the office, sit down, make an appointment, like stuff you could never do nowadays. So we would made demos back then. It wasn't even about making albums or EPs. Like you made a demo and you either put that demo out on the street or you brought it to a record label or a radio station. You know what I'm saying?
And so, did you have any success shopping your demo like that?
Yeah, yeah. I got a few different looks. Columbia Records, Sunset Records. They had Miss Jones back at Trouble Neck crew, and Nervous Records was interested in what me and my brother were doing, and definitely got some really good looks. You know what I'm saying, at that time period. Opened up for like Lost Boys and what I'm saying, different acts at that time period.
And this is when, like late high school?
This was right out of high school. I say about 94, 95.
Okay. So you go through, so you finish high school and you're still in New York at this point, and
Yep.
you guys are kind of cruising around. You've moved past like for like the high school stuff and whatever, and I guess you're doing whatever you can to perform wherever you can, and then
Yep.
simultaneously making your demos and shopping those to different labels, which is more buzz and whatnot.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
during that era, you kind of get to open for all these other people. Do you have any like cool like anecdotal stories? Keep in mind, most of us be like not from where you're at, while a lot of people
Right.
in New York be in New York. When you go, nah, I mean, while honestly, a lot more of the time, I do know what you mean now. Seriously, like. Nah, most of us don't know what you mean in the least. So, like, you dropped a bunch. Like, I don't really know if I know Nervous Records. So, like, that's cool. I
Okay.
mean, I know that you.
Nervous Records was the parent record to Rec Records, which was a lot of Nervous Records was like a lot of Black Moon,
Mm,
Smith and Wesson. You
okay,
know what I'm
okay.
saying? Those boot camp kind of
And
boot camp vibe.
so another question then with all of that. So you're kind of, what is your sound like at this point? Because I know what your sound's like now, but as you said, they're interested in what you and your brother were doing. So is that like your actual brother or like,
My brother-in-law, yeah, me and him, we were actually boys before I got married, and we were just always performing, always in a cipher, always doing something, and we had a lot of good looks. We did a lot of good things while we were, what I'm saying, we got very very close, but we were so young. We were like 19, 18. We were super young, and I had a kid at like 20, so
mm.
there was definitely. I just had to work harder over any, thing that was handed to me, but it was a beautiful thing, at the same time.
So you guys are kind of just out there and you're in the streets like running around doing that grind too,
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
battling
Times
people.
Square, man. Back then, they called it Hell's Kitchen. Now they call it Chelsea or whatever. But yeah, we would all over the place, different ciphers, and what I'm saying, and yeah, beautiful thing, man. We used to love it.
So you were at
I
like
still
Times
have
Square
good
doing
memories.
this.
Huh?
You went to Times Square and all this to rap? Like, is it's like
Yeah,
you got to
well,
keep in mind. Like,
that
I
was
could
the
talk to
stomping
8
grounds with Hell's
people
Kitchen.
from New York, and all of y'all will tell me about rapping in 8 different parts of New York, and then each of those stories would be mad different. So, like, your version of it is just interesting to hear stills.
Yeah, yeah. There was a lot of, you'd see a lot of people pass you by. You know what I'm saying? That whoever they were, I'd be in the studio and Fat Joe would be coming down from D&D and I would be going to playroom and, you know what I'm saying? It would just be like people like that you would just bump into randomly. You know what I'm saying? Guru, you know, all these different people that I love so much that, you know, rest in peace to Guru. But, you know,
And is this because
it
you're
would
like
be normal to see these people.
because you're recording at the same place as they do?
Yep. Basically, yep.
That's a wild part. See, like that's the kind of thing. Like we wouldn't have known that you'd be recording at the same places as everyone if you hadn't told us. Because like that's not inherent to us. When you're like, Psh, I was making music in '95 in New York. It's obvious. I'm like, nah, man. Super not obvious. That's super. But it's dope because like a lot, especially like yo, my man Immortals in the comments on my site. He's from Canada. We're all from Canada, and like Canadians got this wildly distorted perception of what is hip hop based off of Google and YouTube. So like we don't know what it is to really grow up and run through streets and some of us might in a Montreal version. Most of us don't know that experience that you went through or what it would be like to go, you know, save up to go to the studio time and then run into Fat Joe because you just happen to be there and that's the option for you. That doesn't happen here. You know, like it's a different vibe entirely.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
and are you performing a lot at this point? Because now you're an adult and you're clearly in New York City cruising around. So at this point, are you getting into the live scene in New York?
No, actually, at the point now I'm living in Charlotte. Charlotte's a whole nother story you'd be curious about. But as
Wait,
far as New York,
like
when I
Charlotte,
go up
like
there,
North
there's
Carolina?
opportunities. Yeah, Charlotte, North Carolina.
That's
Yep.
where, what's his name, the baby and J. Cole are from?
J. Cole's from I think Fayetteville,
Oh,
and the
yeah,
baby I'm not too sure who the baby is. I'm not. I think he's one of the bigger stars. I'm not sure who he is. The
fair.
baby.
But that's that part
No,
of
no,
town.
no, no, no offense. I just don't.
Nah,
I'm just
man,
not.
I try to stay up on my like top level names and stuff. I like the baby.
No, it's all
I
good.
like guys who have bouncy flows that are fun, even if they're vapid sometimes. And the baby's really fun. Like it's hard to like not
Okay,
want to bop your
I'll
head.
look him up.
Like is his music meaning? I don't know, but it makes me bop my head, and I can't take away that his
Okay.
flow is amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out. I'll definitely look it up, man.
But yeah, so I'm just that from that end of it. So how do you end up going down to Charlotte?
We just moving out of New York. It was real expensive, you know, for other opportunities. And Charlotte's hip hop scene was super different when I was younger. So I had to do actually the lead singer thing when I was moved to Charlotte because there wasn't any hip hop opportunities. So I embraced the singer songwriter stuff while I was down here
Like in what
at the same
sense?
time doing my hip hop.
Like
You
with
know what I'm
like an
saying? So
acoustic guitar type thing, or like
nah, distorted pedals, sometimes acoustic guitar. It would be, you know, folky, soulful kind of vibe. You know what I'm saying? You know, and I just get in where I could use my talent
and
wherever.
this is
You
the
know what I'm
mid.
saying?
So you're saying in like the mid '90s, if you left New York City and you did hip hop, there's nowhere to rap.
No, I left New York 2006 and I came
Okay,
to Charlotte. So there was a lot of New York history, definitely for sure, and still is.
so you went to Charlotte. Okay, so you finished high school in '95, right? And then you're
93, I graduated. Yup.
and then that's the part where you're kind of in New York with the Fat Joe and shit. And
Yeah,
so
yeah. I might be jumping around. My bad. I'm just jumping.
no,
I didn't mean to
that's
jump
why
around.
I'm here. I'm just gotta make sure we map it out. And so then in
Yeah.
2006, you end up in North Carolina. So I guess what I'm saying is, when you're like that in that 18, 19 phase, um, my man Immortal's like, I'm born in '95. See, look at that. You're educating somebody right now. You're creating that context. We don't know that shit. I'm born in '87, so it's not as bad. It's a little more in the
Yeah.
middle. Um, so yeah, you're in like the mid '90s in New York, recording music and making your demos and shopping them. Are you also performing at that point?
Yes, definitely performing, and it was just it was such a beautiful scene in the golden era in New York growing up, and especially as an artist
Can you
because
describe
there
it
was.
some?
Oh man, I mean, it was just like I said, like you could run into the random pool hall in Hell's Kitchen, which is time by Times Square, and there'd be ciphers while people were playing pool at like 8 o'clock on a Friday night. and it would be better than doing it anywhere in one of the fancy spots. Like it was just like, because it would be people from all over the world, Trinidad, Guyana, you know what I'm saying, China, like everybody, and people would step up even if they couldn't rhyme that well. They would just jump in the cypher, and and we were just from all over the world. And that's what I always loved the most about Hell's Kitchen, you know what I'm saying? Because that's where you'd find a super massive diversity.
Were you like staying in Hell's Kitchen, or were you like staying in like the outside of New York and then like coming into Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah, that way. My brother lived in Hell's Kitchen, but I would just come down, you know what I'm saying? It was the first thing to do when I get off work. I'd hit the bus station. You get to New York in about 45 minutes to an hour, and it would be on. It'd be Friday night.
Right. And then, so how long did that period run for when you were in Hell's Kitchen?
Long time, man. Like probably for about 7, 8 years. But there was so many up. That's where I would record. There'd be performing areas around there to perform. You know what I'm saying? Even down to the Village. You know what I'm saying? On the west side. You know what I'm saying? There was always opportunities. You had Fat Beats. There was so many things along just closer to the west side of Manhattan alone, all the way up and down, you know what I'm saying? And it just constantly worked. That's where I would hustle my demos. That's where the radio stations would be. Stretch and Bobito, be at NYU, it was different, Columbia, were they at? No, they were Columbia, but, all over the place, man. There's so much stuff going on.
So like, how many you guys were releasing, did you move past demos and like get into mixtapes and other kinds of projects, and when you start like actually releasing, I guess?
Yeah, mixtapes for me were more or less, probably early 2000s. Like when I was in a crew called MHB, The Fifth Element. We did a lot of things, and so we were putting out EPs and hustling them the same way, performing at different events and handing out CDs and stuff.
Okay. And like, did you ever get into visuals at that point, or was that like too out of like reach?
Yeah, we would do visuals of our shows and things like that and put them out. And then, videos we started putting out videos like 2003, 2004. It never stopped at that point, as far as visuals and all that other stuff, like videos.
So you just like had like a built-in crew for that? Like you guys did it yourselves, or did?
Yeah, we did everything. You know what I'm saying? We never got signed. We just would both basically have our own label, our own independent, jumping from different independent projects, and just, within that,
That's actually really fire. So you're saying like the early 2000s, y'all was like pushing this indie scene stuff, like at the beginning of like real indie
college
scene
radio,
stuff.
Getting a lot of love too, a lot of looks, you know what I'm saying, amongst college radio and different things like that.
And did you get to like tour at all?
Nah, I wish, man. That's definitely still on my bucket list. You know what I'm saying? I'd love, because performing is my thing. I love being on stage, singing, rhyming, whatever I do. I just love the stage, man. I just love it. So that's part of the, I miss COVID kind of screwed that up for like at least 2 years.
Yes. I completely understand what you mean. It's the ending in Montreal. Like we're like allowed to go back to open mid-March. It's like wild times. Like, I mean, it's been 2 years of not a lot of fun in that regard. But just like, because even like the digital shows, or I performed at empty bars that were broadcasted. Like, actually, there was one bar I always wanted to perform at my whole career.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I didn't do none of those COVID things. Tell me about it. And then
I got on to finally perform at the stage I wanted to forever, to a room of 7 people.
Oh,
so
man.
the video's dope. Because, but so I'm on the stage. It's exactly at that bar, but it's empty. There's nobody there. It was so weird.
Okay.
But like,
that is gotta be weird vibe there. But the video came out good. That's all that matters.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with it. Like, weirdly, I was into the idea of digital shows beforehand, but I wasn't expecting it at the cost of like real life, like the other version. Like you're supposed to have both. But then, COVID came, and now COVID's ending, and arguably, I think stuff like setting up tours might be easier than ever to do it at an indie scale, because everybody's thirsty and everything's going to sell for like 2 years. Like, people will be like, I don't even care who's on the bill. I just want to go to the place with the people.
Yeah, I would just if I got with any label, and that's why I'm not like this big. I got to get signed. It's like if I got with any label, they would have to truly believe and back my artistic drive and want to do everything with it. You know what I'm saying? Whether it was marketing, promoting me, putting me on tour, like paying, being excited about me. And I don't know if even labels are doing that as much anymore. You know what I'm saying? Which is unfortunate.
They
You
totally
gotta,
do,
you know,
but from what I understand, you have to go prove to a label that without a label, you can do it, and then they can
do it
scale you
yourself.
to a
Yep.
next level. And that's a lot
Yes.
harder to do than it used to be.
Yep. Yeah, I've had opportunities with like Sony and different people, and they would say, you know, what's your fan base? And I would tell them like I got a good fan base, but they would want you to come straight with like 100,000 like right off the bat, you know, to even be considered to sign. And it was more or less if you would have tried that back in the days when Biggie first came out or Eminem or any of those people, man, like there wasn't those opportunities weren't the same way. Like you had to really know somebody to because Eminem was in the same ciphers, was in the, you know, all of us had to work like triple harder at that point because there wasn't, you know, you didn't have, you know,
You
the
were in
same kind of, you
ciphers
know.
with Eminem back in the day.
No, actually, my brother-in-law was, there was a place, I think it was called 88 Hip Hop, and it was downtown. And like people would come from all over the country and get into these ciphers and stand outside. And you know, my brother went to one that Eminem was at. It wouldn't be uncommon though, like because like I said, Cage, you know, LP, like we were all in the
Well,
very similar
LP's
community
cool.
scene.
Like of all the names you said, LP is the one that just got me the most excited.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm a big LP fan as well. Company Flow is a big deal, and so is, you know, Run the Jewels.
I definitely got snagged on Run the Jewels. Went back and was like, "Oh, say word, LP's got
I
an
know, me too.
interesting ass career."
Yeah, yep.
Yo, Immortal, you
Yeah,
should.
man.
You just got a comment. I'm glad I tuned into this one. I'm like, you should tune into all of them, man. They're all good. But Witchcraft's a nifty dude. And well, here's the thing: the show's called Perspectives because everybody's got a perspective, and they're all different. And nobody ever knows what anybody means these days, anyway. So it's a great opportunity to hear that. Like, just the idea that people be all out in ciphers random, like you hear about it, but just the different names and the variety of names that are in New York. Like your circuit is absolutely different than some of the other circuits we've gone through. Like, arguably, I've heard a lot about the streets, and less about what happens when you're coming from outside of New York in a more suburby kind of vibe. So like less of that I've heard actually.
Yeah. But then you got the graffiti aspect, and then you got the breakers, and there was just so much to absorb
Were
in
you
my
involved?
culture at that time. And it was, yeah, I mean, there was just so much in New York growing up that you could just take your pick. Like I grew up around a lot of really great graffiti artists too that were put up really beautiful murals and stuff. You know what I'm saying? And it's that was just another aspect of the cipher. You know, the other element. You know, and then there was the DJing. You know what I'm saying? And all of them were different, had different elements to them. Like you know what I'm saying, to enjoy either way, you know.
Yo, two questions. One is, did you ever do any of the other elements, or were you just sticking with the vocals? Well, I mean, I know you
I
did
definitely
productions, so
yeah,
I kind of correlate that to DJ work a bit. Um,
yeah,
but what about writing and dancing? Did you ever get into that stuff?
yeah. Then in the early '90s, it was you had to know your steps. You know what I'm saying? That was a popular. That was not a popular, but that was like a must. Even if you were a performer, you had to know how to dance too. You know what I'm saying? Like you know, and definitely did the you know the Running Man vibe and all that stuff. You know, and, you know, you know all that stuff. But you had to though at that point. You know, it was almost like that was a huge part of the culture.
Arguably, if I were to say if anything circling back right now, I think as a performer in hip hop, you have to know how to dance again. And that's
Right,
actually
or at
really
least move
important.
around a little bit.
No, I'm going to go with like, this is a competition thing. If there be 20-year-olds that be rigged, like, look at like a lot of the younger dudes, they be like wildly shaking their junk. And they know exactly what they're doing. And I'm like fascinated by this move of tight pants and shaking of the junk. And I'm like, okay, so the idea of moving to the beat and being part of that side, like guys were like, oh, girls be doing this, I'm gonna do this. And so they started, and now it's like if you're gonna be on stage standing there in an oversized hoodie, not moving to the beat at all, just rapping, and the next people around you be like wildly performing with like the whole kit and caboodle. I'm gonna go with the crowd's not gonna fuck with mans who stood still on the stage. Kind of like how that time Outkast performed at one of them big ass festivals, but they were surrounded by EDM DJs and giant lights, and it was like, yo, Outkast couldn't compete. The crowd did not want Outkast in that moment. They was just not the right vibe.
Yeah, I love definitely being animated on stage. That's important. That's definitely important.
So I mean, that's my theory. People may not agree with me, but I'm pretty sure dancing's coming back. The other question was, have you ever seen Flava Flav playing the piano?
No, but I actually used to see Flavor Flav on my way to the studio when I would go to the studio by Yankee Stadium. Flavor Flav used to live in that neighborhood. I don't know if he still does, probably not. But we would be cutting through the basketball courts to get to the studio right across from Yankee Stadium. And here come Flavor Flav just randomly walking right across the basketball court. That was a nice experience to meet him on some humble, because it wasn't all Flavor Flav. He was just a normal dude on the street at that time, you know? Yeah. So 2001, 2009, well, 97 maybe even. Just way back, you know? But it was an honor.
That's cool. I don't know why that question came, but that's a cool answer because
that's
dope, man. That's cool. Like, I know what Yankee Stadium looks like. I don't even know if it's the same one, to be real. I could have moved or some shit because I saw it, and I know there's a picture of me in front of the current Yankee Stadium. So I saw that, and I was like, yeah, sports.
Yeah, a few years back they had an older one that was from back in the days, but they changed it up. Yep.
I was like, this shit looked kind of new, and you're describing it, and I'm like, I don't know if it's the same spot, but that's cool. So basically then you're running through the 2000s, you're putting the projects into work in, you're kind of crafting it out. When do you become Whichcraft?
Whichcraft I became in 94, 95.
Okay.
About 90, I think it was about 94 when I became Whichcraft.
And how did you become Whichcraft?
Just because of the multiple stuff that I did, you know what I'm saying? Whether it was singing, poetry, dancing, MCing, you know, it was just, you know, it was like that witchcraft kind of play on words, you know what I'm saying? Like
oh, shit. Now that you're saying that to me and I'm looking at your name, which craft do you care about? That's actually pretty bold. Not even gonna lie. I like that. Because at first I was like, because you look at the name and your first thought might be more like, yo, are we going in the paranormals? Are we going in different directions?
Right. Yeah. Of course, I always would get that, yo.
But that's pretty cool. I fucks with that. Yeah. Everyone's kind of reacting to that. That's dope. Stills. I'm so like,